If you could go back to little young you,
Yes.
making your first prototypes, and you could yell at yourself, don't do this is a dumb idea, what would you tell yourself, like, hey, this was a mistake I made, this is something that we should have done different?
Do it earlier, do it more, try to meet more people.
Just make games.
Start being an indie earlier than 2012.
Failing is okay.
Last week we headed to Gamescom, and one of the things that I like to do when I go to those larger scale events is ask other people for their game dev advice. Because at the end of the day, I'm just a guy sitting in a room spouting nonsense sometimes about game dev. And everyone who's at Gamescom, they have probably achieved something in life. I mean, it's not a cheap conference to exhibit on, so they generally know what they're doing, at least a little bit more. So I like to ask them questions. Last year I made a video, you can find over there, where I asked them, hey, do I need to get a game dev degree? Is it worth it, yes or no? It was a great video. I think it helped a lot of people, honestly. And this year I went and asked them about their deepest, darkest regrets from when they started game development, or just some advice they had if they could go back to their younger self and yell at themselves like, hey, don't make this damn mistake. And I've gotten a lot of answers, but I can basically group them in a few categories, so I want to go over them now.
Just start.
I would say the best advice is just to start it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yes.
The first category that everyone basically said in the beginning was just get started sooner. It was so bad, honestly, because everyone was saying this that I had to change the question and I had to include like hey, you're not allowed to say just get started, because I wanted this video to be interesting. But really, it's something that these YouTube videos, we always say this, there will never be a better time to get started. The biggest regret everyone has is not starting sooner and just postponing and being like, oh, it's a bit, maybe the layoffs and the indie landscape is hard. Yeah, it's always gonna be hard. Just get started with it. That's how you're gonna learn, that's how you're gonna improve. Nobody is born a natural game developer, so to say. It is something that just, you'd have to put in the reps. Your first game will suck, your second game probably will suck as well, but at some point you will be making games that are decent. The people there, almost nobody there is standing there with their first game. They start doing prototypes, they start doing game jams. Just get started as fast as you can. Don't make giant scoped games, that's another one. Just get started, make small things and improve from there. Learn an engine. The exact engine you take doesn't even matter. Go for Unreal, go for Godot, go for Unity if you want. Just get started with something and you'll learn it along the way. So really, don't worry about it. And even if you're on the other spectrum, like, hey, I'm like 30, 35, I have kids and whatever, I can't get started now. It's like a young person's game. That's also not the case. You can't be too old to get started with game dev as well. It's just getting started as fast as you can. I always say this, well, game dev is like planting a tree. There are two great moments to do it. Either plant a tree 30 years ago or plant it today. And most likely you missed the 30 years ago already. So just get started. We've made a lot of videos on this channel as well about getting started with game development. I've got a great video about it over there, and just give it a go.
Don't plan so much, just do.
Not having a straight up plan for production in general.
Stop thinking so much.
And then the next piece of advice, which was kind of contrary, and I guess that's a good indication that, you know, even these established developers don't always know exactly what's like the best approach, is either plan more or plan less. That's basically what they said. And I think I have some more thoughts here. The plan less relates very much to the, hey, just get started. Don't make a 500-page GDD about your open world MMORPG that you want to make. But also the plan more talks more about, hey, if you are going to evolve from those little game jam prototypes and you're actually going to be making a game that has a bit more of a scope and has a bit more of a development cycle of a year or whatever, then you probably do want to plan like, hey, how am I gonna do issue management? How am I gonna do my like version control and all of that, and just plan some of the core systems as well. Because if you have to build on top of them, it gets more important to plan those in advance. Once again, I made some videos about that before, but I feel like, is there a middle ground for planning? I don't know. We've made some resources such as the one-page game design document. I think that's a great start for pretty much anyone watching here. Like if you've released between 0 and 2 games, I think a one-page game design document is still all you need really to get started. Do that in combination with a smaller scoped game and you'll be fine, because you do not need to plan for 2 years in advance if you're not making a game with a 2-year scope. So that's, once again, smaller games, plan less, just do it. Don't get like planning paralysis or analysis paralysis, where you put so much effort in already setting up the Trello board and everything, even when there's no game yet. Or same with code. There's this great example I always bring up of a developer I was talking to, and they were working on their game, but all they had was interfaces. There was no gameplay at all. They had no idea if their game was fun or good or anything. They just knew, hey, I have interfaces, so I can extend my code to the moon, but there was no code and no gameplay yet, and then it doesn't matter. So I would personally lean a little bit more into the plan less for you guys. If you're starting a larger studio, and especially if you're working with like more than 2 people, yes, you will need to do more planning, but right now, I don't think you have to worry about it too much.
I'd say don't be nervous to talk to other people. I think you should go out, meet other developers, because that's how you create a team. That's how you start making something.
Then another big one, and a reason that a lot of the people are on these conferences as well, is getting to know other people. Game development, when you get started, you generally don't know anyone else, or maybe you get lucky, and that was one of the reasons actually why most people said like, hey, this is the only reason a game dev degree is worth it, is you have that network of meeting other people who are also interested in game dev. You don't want to go into this all alone. It's just sad, and you won't get as much success, you won't go as far. So finding ways, going to game dev meetups and trying to network with people, talk to them about their games, see, hey, can we work together? Can we maybe do a jam sometimes? Those are very important things to improve your game development career as well. It's like, yeah, you can make those first games solo, but if you want to scale it out, generally, yeah, you know, there's like the little companies that's made by solo devs, and you have some games, but most games are not solo dev projects, because good chances are that you're good at art and bad at code, or you're great at code and you're horrible at art. And at some point, it's better to find someone who complements your skills and make games together than just trying to keep doing it all on your own. You're working way slower, you're working way less efficient, and you're just not going to put in as many reps because you're not going to be able to release as many games.
Don't sign a bad deal just because you like the gravitas of having a publisher.
And then the last tip that I only got once, but I think it was such a good tip, and just like a tip in general in life that I do want to give it another shout out, is don't take a deal just so you can say that, hey, I got a deal. And this was in relationship to publishers, where a lot of developers, especially if this is like your first time, you'll sign whatever the first deal is that you'll get. Because I want to become a real game developer, and I can only be it when I get like my first check from an incubator or from a publisher or from an investor or whatever. And then turns out you're stuck in a bad situation. That's something that we have always dealt with as well, not just for our game dev, but also things like sponsorships. I always tell this to Thomas, like we get a lot of shit sponsors, and it's like, yeah, the money is cool, but the deals are bad and it's going to hurt you more in the long term. Don't just take a deal to be like, hey, I got a publisher, even though the publisher is useless and it has like imposing deadlines and you lose the creative control and they don't even give you that much money. I know in the current landscape, it can be very tempting to just take whatever you can get, whatever money you can find basically, because there isn't much going around. But don't accidentally lose ownership of your company, for example, or like ownership of your game and your IP. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and you need things like lawyers and whatever for if you really want to deal with publishing. But just in general, don't take whatever is given to you. Always look at, hey, how is this going to affect me today? And generally today it will be good, because that's how they tempt you with the 25,000 euros, for example. But then you look in the future and it's like, oh, actually they want 10% of my company, or like even more in some cases. It's like, that is not worth it to me. Then keep that in mind that, hey, maybe I shouldn't take this deal and I should just keep going at it, and I will find a better deal later on. If you can do that, if you can afford that, do that. It's going to save you a lot of headaches, a lot of stress, and it is just going to make your long-term planning and your long-term vision of your studio much better. There were some more tips, but these were the big ones. So just get started, don't plan too much, find other people to talk to in the game dev scene. A great solution for this is our Discord server, which you can find linked down below. We try to be very active and like help people match. Some of the people actually who were at Gamescom were only there because they spoke to me, and then I knew some other devs in their country and I connected them, and bam, suddenly they got funding and they got a booth on Gamescom and things like that, which is probably one of my proudest moments of what I've achieved with this game dev career. And then, yeah, don't take the first deal you get. Always think, hey, is this actually going to hurt us in the long run? Yes or no? Or am I just doing this to boost my ego and say that, hey, I have a publisher, even though the publisher isn't really the best? Anyways, that's all I need to say. If you enjoy this kind of game dev content, then go ahead down below and subscribe. It really helps us out, and we upload these videos 2 times every week talking about game development and the process of the entire game development world, basically. We just released our 2nd game, so if you're interested in things like sales numbers, how we did our marketing, how we actually finished the game in only 30 days, then be sure to subscribe as well. because we'll be making a lot of content about that probably in the coming 1 or 2 months, basically talking about the full earnings, talking about all of the mistakes that we've made. So I think there's some great content coming up as well. Anyways, thank you very much. And I still have one word from Crazy Games, who sponsored this coverage and all of the Gamescom videos. So see you guys later. Bye.
Coverage of Gamescom has been brought to you by Crazy Games. They don't just make cool hats, but they also make a cool platform to export your web games to their platform, Crazy Games. It's basically itch.io, but you can work with monetization, either in-app purchases or advertising, to actually earn some money from your game. They give you an audience as well, so you don't just have 4 installs. So they're a really cool solution, honestly. If you're just getting started with game development, maybe you're not ready for a full Steam release. And hey, they brought you all of this coverage. So thank you very much to Crazy Games once again, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
What is your #1 game dev tip for beginning game developers? Thank you.